Hello guys, we're going to go over chapter 15. It is kind of continuation of chapter 14, the nervous system, but it talks about the five senses. And again, it's a great chapter. You guys should study it. You should know it. You should be prepared for it, for your future life, whatever you're planning to do. So here are the learning outcomes. And so the sensation, let me move this thing out of the way, bring it down here. Sorry about that, I always have to pause a little bit. Okay, so sensory receptors, as I said, this chapter is about the five senses. The sensory receptors, we get signals from the outside, the light, the taste, the smell, the touch, what have you. So you get these senses from the outside the environment, and your body, your brain, and your spinal cord, deal with them. And these are called the exteroceptors. Okay. Oh, I lost my my pen ship. Here we go. They're called exteroceptors. So they are the stimuli from the outside. I hope I'm making some sense. So, and then of course you have five senses. We humans have five senses to deal with those. And then we have enteroceptors. They are receptors that are inside of our body. And then you remember the term homeostasis, I talked about it before. So our internal condition, the condition inside of our body, has to maintain within the equilibrium. If it is not, then Houston, you got problem. Apollo 13, you watched the movie. I hope if not, just rent it tonight and watch it. So that is different than external receptors. Anyhow, so here is the exteroceptors. He's talking about each one of them and what senses. Make sure you study this table and you be familiar with them, and so on and so forth, but I will talk about them as time goes on in the next few minutes or so. So sensory receptors continue. Enteroceptors, I talked about that. They are the one responsible for your acid base, for your pH, water and salt solutions, your osmosis inside of your body, the changing blood pressure, baroreceptors, and so on and so forth. Those are the interoceptors are as important as exteroceptors. So types of sensory receptors. Sensory receptors are classified into four categories: chemoreceptors, photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, and thermoreceptors. And the names that apply: chemoreceptors, they are for chemistry; photo for photon, for your light; mechanoreceptors for mechanical; and thermo for thermal regulations for the heat, and so on and so forth. There is one term I would like you to know that is nociceptors. I'll put the spelling here. Nociceptors. They are for pain, the receptors for pain, a type of chemoreceptors. And make sure you know that. And they are naked dendrites that respond to chemical release and by damaged tissues. Okay, sensory receptors continued again. Photoreceptors, I said, mechanoreceptors stimulated by mechanical forces, hearing, balance, touch, pressure, and thermoreceptors is stimulated by changing temperature. So I already talked about that. Sensation, the continuous perception of stimulus. That's what sensation is, occurring in cerebral cortex. So cerebral cortex is the biggest portion of your brain. You remember that cerebellum is down here. Cerebral cortex is all of this, which is two hemispheres from last chapter. Okay, there is one other term that I think it is important, and that is the integration. Integration, before the sensory receptor initiate nerve signals, they also carry out integrations. I think as I talk about it a little bit later on, that the term integration makes a little bit more sense. That's the best definition, I guess, your textbook is giving here now. Here, that's what I was talking about. So if there are stimulus right here from the environment, what happens, the neurons, the nerve cells from our peripheral nervous system, they carry that sensation from the environment, whatever that is, and then they take it to either to brain or spinal cord. For example, you remember in the past, I gave you a definition, an example, not definition, I'm sorry, an example of a reflex arc. You put your hand on a hot stove and you quickly remove it, okay? That information does not go into your brain. That goes to your spinal cord, and from spinal cord goes back to the muscle cells, and then you remove your hand. Later on, the information goes to the brain. So look at the arrows in here. I draw too many arrows, sorry about that. But anyhow, so stimulus, it goes to sensory receptor. Sensory receptor goes to nerve impulses along sensory fibers. So two things might happen. They might go to spinal cord and then brain, or they might directly go to the brain. So the example I gave you in the past, it goes to the spinal cord and then it goes back to the muscle. And then later on, that burning sensation or the cut goes to the brain and says, okay, now you got to go put Band-Aid on it, okay, or you put ice on it, what happened. Okay, so one type of integration is sensory adaptation. The sensory adaptation, if you put clothes on this morning, you can feel it. It's a little bit rough. The clothing is a little bit rough or a little bit tight. You feel it at the beginning, but over a period of time, that you become adapted to it. And that's what sensory adaptations means. A decrease in response to stimulus over time. Okay, and remember, the stimulus is that action potential from last chapter. I talked about it. So you are constantly receiving stimuli and constantly your body is doing action potential. Okay, so that is important for you guys to put the last chapter and this one kind of together a little bit. So anyhow, this talks about somatic senses. So let's talk about state that locomotion, general functions, learning outcome. Okay, somatic senses associated with the skin, muscles, joints, and visceral. Visceral is your belly portion of the body. It's called a visceral portion of your body. So somatic senses deal with your skin, your muscles, your joints, and your visceral portion of receptors are categorized into three types. They're proprioceptors, cutaneous receptors, and pain receptors. So in general, the somatic receptors are three types. And all sense nerve impulses via spinal cord to primary somatosensory area of the cerebral cortex. Yes, they work together. Proprioceptors, these are, I'm trying to read this, I'm mispronounced it heavily. Proprioceptors, they are mechanoreceptors involved in reflex actions that maintains muscles, tone, equilibrium, and postures, and so on and so forth. So, and then these slides, the next few slides, I'd like to go ahead and explain diagrams and pictures to you, for you guys. And then he talks about the Golgi tendon organs. This is different than Golgi apparatus. Dr. Golgi, he not only covered these, he was a physician and talked about different things. He also discovered the Golgi apparatus inside of a cell for packaging of cell and stuff like that. We talked about it in the past. So that is a tendon, which I will talk about it, proprioceptors, both muscle spindles and Golgi tendons right here. That is your, right, talking about tendon. As you know, tendon, it connects muscle to the bone, okay? So Golgi tendon organs, proprioceptors, there is a nerve that comes up here, and of course it goes, the sensory nerve goes through the spinal cord, come back to the motor nerve, if there are any association neuron in spinal cord or not. So this is pretty much action of proprioceptors, and it goes from sensory neuron to, and then it could be, of course, there is a nerve right here, could be stimulating the, it's called the Golgi tendon organs, and that's the third neuron, sensory neuron that goes from spinal cord. Cutaneous receptors, we're talking about skin. Anytime in your life you heard the term cutaneous, it means skin. So, and it's sensitive to touch, skin, to pressure, pain, temperature, warm, cold. There are different, make sure you know the name of these nerves in your skin: Meissner's, corpuscles, Krauss end bulbs, Krauss end bulbs, Merkel discs, and root hair plexus. So these are the main nerves that are found, and there is a nice diagram right here that it talks about different type of nerve, and of course you should know them. Like Meissner's nerve, they are for touch, corpuscles, I'm sorry, Meissner's corpuscles nerve, they are for touch. And then Pacinian, it's an Italian name, Pacinian corpuscles, it is for pressure. And Ruffini is for pressure. So these three, you have 1, 2, 3 nerves for pressure. And then you have free nerve ending for pain, heat, and cold. These are free nerve ending that comes all the way to the surface of your skin. And then if you cut your skin or something happens, you feel the pain. Or heat and cold, you can feel the heat and cold on the surface of the, your body. Then you have the Merkel discs. They are for touch, okay? And they are, the Merkel discs are kind of between the epidermis. Right here is epidermis and dermis, okay? So that's what Merkel discs are. And Krauss end bulbs, they are deep in the epidermis right here, and they're again responsible for touch. And the last one, it is your, I cannot see it, I'm not sure, I cannot see it, guys, oh yeah, I can see it. Root hair plexus, that is also for touch. Okay, so those are, he's mentioning them all in here. So cutaneous, I think I talked about Ruffini, Pacinian, thermoreceptors, all of those, I covered them, I talked about them. I'm not sure, do I need to go ahead and talk about it anymore? A little bit of note maybe here, I would like to, maybe I ask a question about it. Aspirin and ibuprofen reduces the pain by inhibiting the enzyme that synthesizes, prostaglandin. Yeah, okay, so very important. Prostaglandin is a hormone that is secreted by most of the cells in your body. It percolates all over your body. And what he's saying, the tissues that are damaged by toxins or mechanical thermoelectrical stimuli, they release a chemical called prostaglandin. So prostaglandin has nothing to do with the prostate, which binds to nociceptors, the pain receptors, and then of course the pain receptors are stimulated and you feel the pain. So the prostaglandin again is a hormone, and I like to ask a few questions about it. That is all over our body, and it is secreted by neurons itself, and of course there are some glands. When we get to glands, there are glands that secrete them too. Referred pain, so sometimes when you have pain in your belly, but you feel your toothache, or the other way around, you have toothache, you feel like pain in your belly. Of course, you don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of referred pain in our body. Stimulation of nociceptors in internal organs is felt as pain in the skin. Also, for example, pain in the heart is often held in your left shoulder. That is a referred pain type of thing. Nerve, what else? Nerves, impulses from nociceptor in internal organs, synapses with neurons, and receiving impulses from the skin. Okay, so sense of taste. Chemoreceptors are divided into two types. Those that are respond to distant stimuli and respond olfactory cells, it's in your nose, distance, taste, and smell, pH, and taste buds are the papillae in your tongue, which are responsible, they're like an onion, and you can feel the sense of taste. And there are 4 different type of taste of the 5, I'm sorry, during my days when I went to college, it was 4, and nowadays it's 5. So umami or savory, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and you have the umami, the most recently added. It's not sweet, it's not sour, it's not salty, it's kind of, I don't know, but anyhow, it's a savory, anyhow. Taste buds open taste pores, and gustatory, it means taste. The term gustatory, it means taste, gustatory cortex. And here it is, they're onion-like, and this is the papillae right here. This is the papillae, and inside of the papillae, there are little hair-looking projections, and these are the epithelial cells, if you would. These are the nucleus of the epithelial cells. And then these are the nerve endings right here. These are the nerve endings, which whatever the chemicals taste, it's a chemicals. The chemicals come down here, and then we feel the taste of sweetness, and we feel the taste of sour. In old days, I don't know, nowadays the textbooks, I don't know why your textbook's not mentioning it, that on the sides was the taste of bitter. Bitter was in the back, I'm sorry. On the sides was sour, and sweet was at the front, and so on and so forth. I guess your textbook's not mentioning them, so I'm not worried about it at all. And then this goes into your sensory fibers, it goes into the brain. Sense of smell, 80% of what we perceive as a taste is actually due to the sense of smell. So if somebody lost their sense of smell, they usually, and your sense of smell as you age, it's reduced, and usually the sense of smell as you age is reduced. So it's by sense of smell that you can taste things. Olfactory cells, olfactory bulbs, epithelial, it's a root of nasal cavity on top, modified olfactory cilia. So right here, if somebody had an accident and their brain was moved, these nerves are cut, so they lost their sense of smell. These nerves can be cut. If this is the olfactory bulb right here, and this is your the skull, and if the brain has a sudden impact, like football players or in car accidents, so if these nerves are called cut, the sense of smell is reduced. Anyhow, what am I talking about here? If there is a rose, the molecules go through these olfactory epithelium, and then it goes to olfactory bulb, and from olfactory bulbs it goes to the frontal lobe of cerebral hemisphere, and it goes to parietal. It will come up. Olfactory bulbs, contains different we human have 1,000, but dogs, they have a great number. Oh God, what was it? 20,000, something like that. Dogs have. That's why they can distinguish the smell very well. Olfactory cortex located in temporal lobes. That's what I said. Very good. In temporal lobe. I hope I said that. Very important. That is something I would like you to know. The olfactory cortex is located in temporal lobe, and you will see that the vision is in occipital lobe, but the olfactory is in temporal lobe. Okay. So vision, your textbook spends a lot of pages on vision. It is important. That's the most important of the 5 senses. Okay. So if, for example, I tell you something, if you were in an accident and it was not your fault, and you lose your vision, for example, they give you $1 million. If you lost your sense of smell, they give you $100,000. You lost your sense of, I don't know, taste, of something like that, then they give you less money. So, but vision is most important. So I did put it an exhibit, an example in perspective of what happens. So the eye, the sclerochoroid, the 3 layers of sclerochoroid and retina. Sclera is the white portion of the eye. It protects your eye. It's very tough connective tissue. It's very tough to cut, same as scrotum. It's a connective tissue, and these two are very, very tough to cut, almost as hard as skull. Okay, so sclera is a tough, and of course you cannot see, the light cannot pass through it. Choroid is a layer that has a lot of blood vessels, so you can, the body supplies the eye with nutrient and nourishment, and then of course take away the waste material. And retina, that's actually where the vision takes place. So anyhow, I will, in front of the eyes, you have the iris, the muscle, that it's different people have different colors of iris, green, black, brown, so on and so forth. And the opening in the middle is called pupil, and ciliary body attach the lenses, and they shape the lenses right here. Very good. So you have, let's go from in front of the eye, and then we get to the structures in the back. Ciliary bodies, they attach to the lens, so they can make the lens, if there is an object close to my eyes, my lens becomes thickened. If an object is far away from me, then my lens becomes thin. Okay, we'll get to that a little bit. Here's a lens, here's an iris, as I said, blue eye. This person, I guess, is blue eye. Pupil is the opening right here within the iris. And cornea, the most successful transplant is corneal transplant, because there is not much blood vessels in here. Okay, so that is the clear portion in front of the eye, so the light can pass through. Your eye is not covered with sclera, then you would not be able to see anything. Then right after cornea, there is an anterior compartment filled with aqueous humor. This is a compartment called aqueous humor. And then there is another compartment back here is called vitreous humor, posterior compartment filled with vitreous humor. Okay, and then again, suspensorial ligaments. And then you have the fovea centralis. It is full of cones, and I will talk about it, rods and cones. And then of course your blind spot or optic nerve right there. That's your optic nerve or blind spot. If image is formed here, the person cannot see it, okay? So you can do in the lab, we used to do practice, move the pen back and forth, and then until you can see, you do not see it. So suspensorial ligament, anterior chamber, I think I talked about all of those. The eye continued, glaucoma. Okay, so you have this aqueous humor, maybe I should go back, is continuously produced, go back. Okay, right here, so this aqueous humor, they are little channels that constantly, the fluid is percolating here, to make the long story short, okay? So what happens if these aqueous humor continuously produced and drained by tiny ducts? If these ducts are stopped, blocked, then the person has glaucoma. One of the effect of, one thing that can cause glaucoma is diabetes. Okay, so, and of course the person can, the pressure in the eye get tremendous, get high, and eventually the person can lose their vision. So it is not, glaucoma is not a good disease to have. That's why you better check your eyes on a regular basis, and they make sure what is going on. Okay, rods and cones, let me come back to them. It will come back to them. Fovea centralis, as I said, is mainly optic nerve. I talked about all of these. You know, you guys, I kind of do not like this very much. Sclera protects the eye and supports the eye. Perfect, he did fine here. Cornea refracts right, yes. Pupil admits light. That definition is the opening inside of the iris. And choroid absorbs stray light. I'm not sure about that one, but I guess. Ciliary body holds lens in accommodation. Iris regulates light entrance. Yes. Retina contains sensory receptors. Yes, that's a good one. Rods makes white and at night vision. So the rods are for your night vision, and cones are for your color vision. And fovea centralis makes acute vision possible, and lens of okay. The only things I guess I have a problem with choroid. I do have a little bit of problem with that, but that's okay. The rest is good. I thought it's worse than that, but anyway. Function of the lens, it focuses the objects. Of course, you know that visual accommodation, ciliary bodies, and you know, you put lenses and so on and so forth. Okay. Focusing of the light, as I talked about this before, if the object is far away, right here, then the lens becomes the suspense ligament taut and the lens flattened, okay? Becomes thinner. If the object is here, close your eyes, what happens? The lens becomes thicker, okay? Make sure you know that a little bit about the eye. Visual accommodation, close, requires contraction of ciliary muscles, eye strains, and then far away, you know, the light becomes so on and so forth. Outer segments, rods and cones, rhodopsin. Okay, very good. Rhodopsin is a visual pigment in rods. It's a protein molecule, which is made up of opsin and retinol. Retinol is vitamin A. So if you want to see better at night, you cannot see at night very well, then you have to take vitamin A. Carrot is a good source of vitamin A. So, so this leads to a cascade of reactions and release inhibitory neurotransmitters and so on and so forth. So red blood cells are tolerant. Right here, if you would, this is a cone, which they shown it here. And this is a rod. A cone, as I said, it's responsible for your color vision. And we will talk about, there are 3 different types of cones. And rods, they are usually in the periphery of your eye, right in here. And then they are good for night vision. At night, you cannot see colors, right? At night, you see black and white, okay? And that's what rods are. So here they're talking about the opsin and the retinol combination of them, and then how the ion channels and so on and so forth. Again, cones located, and then as I said, there are 3 different types of cones: blue, green, and red. And the reason you see different colors like pink is a combination of these cones. They allow you to see different colors. So if you see yellow, it's a combination of these cones allow you to see different colors. So people who are colorblind, it means they do not have 1 or 2 or 3 of these cones. That's why, and being colorblind is a genetically, it's a genetic disorder, which we will talk about it, I guess, in subsequent chapters. So another thing that the rods are covered by bipolar cells, and it closes the choroid. And then again, I'm not too crazy about this. Let's move on. Here is a nice picture, nice microscopic slides, which we do not look at it in the lab. Microscopic slides of the eye. So you have sclera, as I said, tough connective tissue. Then you have choroid. There's a lot of blood vessels here. And then you have rods and cones, this layer of rods and cones. And then underneath are bipolar bodies, cells, and then the ganglions, which are the neurons that end up in the optic nerve. Okay, blind spot, I talked about it. I'm gonna move on. And that would be a blind spot right here. If image is formed right here, you cannot see it. And so optic chiasm, optic tracts, let's talk about those quickly. Your textbook did a good job. Here are your eyes. And when image, it goes from here, it crosses right here, that crossroads between the right eye and left eye is called optic chiasm, optic chiasm, singular, optic chiasm plural. And then it goes through a tract, and then that tract is called optic tract. And then of course, this is your thalamus, part of the brain. You studied it before. Analyze the information, and the information goes to your occipital lobe of the brain. Right there, the visual cortex, the occipital lobe, actually the image is formed, and that is where the image is turned right side up, because the image is formed in your eye is upside down. For example, this image in my eye, this pen is upside down in the eye. But after it crosses and goes through all of these tracts in the occipital lobe, then you can see it the right side. Okay, so that's pretty much retina and visual cortex. Vision, 2 eyes provide a good depth and so on and so forth. Colorblind, I think I talked about it. It has to do with the X chromosomes, and I will talk about it later on. And he gives you stats in here, which I'm not too crazy about those numbers. Nearsighted, it means you can see close, but you cannot see far distance. So what is wrong with the lens? And it can be fixed with the image of with the lens, which I think a picture will come up. And then the vision, a perfect vision is 20/20. We have a chart in the lab, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is how to correct the lens correction for concave lens. Right here, allow subject to see distant objects. So the object, this is the normal eye. The image is formed here, but with a concave lens, then you can see that the subject in the distance. And then this is, of course, the nearsightedness is with it. This is the nearsightedness right here, so you can. Farsighted, it means you cannot see far. The DMV will not give you a driver license if you are, you have to use for glasses. So that's why DMV tests you for. So what happens, the farsighted, the image is formed beyond the eyeball right here. So the image is formed here. So what you have to do, you have to get a lens to a concave lens, a convex, I'm sorry, convex lens. Those of you at physics pretty much know what I'm talking about, a little bit convex and concave lens. And then the image is fall right here on the retina. Okay. Astigmatism, it means that it's wavy. The lens or the cornea is wavy. To fix that, again, by a wavy type of lens, it can be fixed, and it's uneven. He's calling it not wavy lens. Okay, anatomy of physiology of the ear. So let's go through. Your ear is broken down to 3 parts. That's right. Outer ear, middle ear, and then inner ear, which we'll go over all of that. Pinna, this is called pinna, and auditory canal. So every morning you clean up your auditory canal, you take a shower, you clean up your pinna, and then that's what the external, the outer ear is. Okay. The ear, middle ear begins with tympanic membrane. So if that is broken, it is tough to connect. I don't know about technology nowadays. Then it cannot be reconstructed, as far as I know, unless nowadays with the surgery they can do a lot of things. Eardrum, another name for it is eardrum, and 2 openings. Covered in tympanic membrane, oval window. There is a lot about ear also, but I don't want to spend too much time on the ear, to be honest with you guys. So here's your pinna, the outer ear, and this is auditory canal, tympanic membrane, and there are 3 bones in here. So the very first bone is called malleus, incus, and stapes right here. And the stapes is connected to the oval window. So an oval window is connected to the cochlea, okay? And then cochlea has this is the cochlea, this is semicircular canals, and then they have vestibular nerves. This is called vestibular, and these are vestibular nerves, and cochlear nerve will take it to the temporal portion of the brain, the sound. Okay, temporal. Auditory tube, I think I talked about all of those semicircular canals. I think I talked about them right here. These are semicircular canals. We have 3 of them. So, I think you guys should read these things and be familiar with the cochlea and organ of Corti. So make sure you know. And noise pollution is talking about all of those. Yes, there is true. There is a noise pollution. So this is the sequence of the structure. I was waiting for this one. The structure that's responsible for hearing, starting with the sound waves. It goes from auditory canal to tympanic membrane. We talked about those. Then it goes to those 3 bones. Remember that? Malleus, incus, stapes. There are 3 bones in the ear. And then it goes to oval window and cochlea. I think I talked about that. I put it in here. And there are the hair are here, which allows the, please read it. Again, these are transmission electron micrograph of the ear. And he's talking about different decibels and what you can hear and so on and so forth. I'm not too crazy about it, but that's what we were talking about, noise pollution. This is it. Okay, ear is not only responsible for your hearing, is also responsible for your equilibrium. So you can walk on the rope, believe it or not, with the help of your cerebellum, your ear. So the sense of equilibrium is involved, very important. Vestibular nerve originating semicircular canals, utricles, and there are little stones in the eye, the calcium carbonate stones, and those little stones called otolith, it becomes right here. Otolith, those are, they move, so the hair are moving, and then the membrane can move, and then you can hear noises, gravitational equilibrium, and so on and so forth. Again, I would like you to read it on your own, and if you have any question, please let me know. All right, that's the end of this chapter. I hope I didn't talk too much.